All right, awesome. So hey guys, I'm so excited we're doing this demo webinar today. Really, this is just sort of a off the cuff idea. I saw, there's always a lot of chatter on some of the Facebook groups about processes, and I just kind of mentioned one day, like, hey, would anybody be interested in just seeing what we're doing with LeadSimple? And a few people said yes, and so I said, okay, cool, we'll set it up. And I thought maybe there'd be 20 or 30 people that want to hop on this call with us, but we have over 150 registrants. We'll see how many people are able to attend live, and we'll find a way to get the video out to folks who aren't able to attend live. But super glad all you guys are here. One of our core values at HomeVault Property Management is we are process geeks, and so love to geek out on processes with you today. So I just want to introduce the folks we have up here on the panel. So I'm joined by Tony and Jay. They're just here for their good looks, so don't mind them. But they are going to be monitoring the chat and just connecting with you guys. A couple logistics about the chat and the Q&A. We love getting the chat going and hearing what you guys have going on, so please engage with us there. If you do have specific questions you want to make sure we get addressed, please make sure to use the Q&A feature and put your questions in there. We will be checking that throughout the demo today and answer your questions. When you use the chat, by the way, one little thing, make sure to switch it from all panelists to change it to all panelists and attendees. And that way we'll all be able to see each other's chat. So the other folks we have on the panel with us here, joined by Alexandra.
Yes,
thank you. She has worked with me for over 5 or 6 years now, and I still can't get her last name right. So, and she's so kind and patient with me. Alexandra is actually one of our remote team members. She hails from Romania, and she is our process director. So it's also not only a good opportunity to see our processes, but also a good opportunity to see what it's like to work with remote team members. And Alexandra is just as much a part of our team as anybody is, and she's really a valuable teammate. So Alexandra, thank you for being on. She's actually going to be running the show here once we pull the demo up. And also want to address or introduce Zach and Chris from LeadSimple. They're both great guys, and then really glad they were able to be here today to answer any questions that are going to be above Alexander and I's pay grade, because there are lots going to be questions like that. On that note, one thing I want to say about our process is we're not doing this demo, by the way, because we have it all figured out and this is the end all be all. We are in process with our processes. We've made a commitment to figuring it out. We're probably, frankly, only about 60% of the way there of where we want to be. But we're far enough along that we do think we have some things that will be helpful for you guys to see. One note as we kind of share that is where we are in setting up our processes is we have set up a bit of automation within our processes. But we will be rolling out a lot more automation as we go into 2021. We decided to adopt the mentality of allowing LeadSimple to really flesh out everything that they wanted to do internally with their automation, so we could take advantage as much as possible with native automations within LeadSimple before we really start getting in too deep into Zapier. Because honestly, if you set up a lot of Zaps, it can get expensive quickly. And so we wanted to keep pricing in check with our Zaps. And so that's kind of our philosophy with the automations as it stands right now. All right, before I turn it over to Alexandra, anybody else on the panelists? Did I miss anything before we jump into the demo?
No, the thing is, if we were doing this demo live, we'd have, live interactions, people raising their hands and having some of those questions. So we really encourage you to use the Q&A. If you're brave enough and you want to raise your hand, virtually raise your hand through Zoom here, I'll reach out to you and find out what your question is, and maybe we'll pull you up on the mic and the camera so you can ask your question live. But the easiest way is to put your question in the Q&A so that other people can upvote that question. So if we do run out of time at the end, we'll try to address the most requested questions first. That way we can provide as many people with as much value as possible.
Okay, without further ado, let's get to the meat and potatoes here. So Alexandra, take it away.
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's great to have you here. Matt, if you would allow me to please share my screen, I'm going to start there.
Got it.
All right. All right, so this is LeadSimple, guys. Some of you may already be familiar with it. Maybe some of you are using it for leads. We use, currently we use it for processes for ops department. So we have a different software that we're using for leads. So everything that you see here on the left, these are all core processes that we've already set up in LeadSimple and are currently in use with the exception of one or two. So this is kind of a dashboard for all of the processes that you can see whenever you log in. And I'll go through creating the process today, just what the experience looks like from the user standpoint. And then I'll show you guys a little bit on the back end, how it's all set up. I know a few of you already asked some questions about how to set up email templates and all of that stuff that happens on the back end. So I'll show you a little bit about that as well. So these processes that we're using, just like any other process software, this is a process is composed of a sum of tasks, and they can be of various types. So I'm going to show you a little bit about that as well as we move along. So if you want to start a process, it's very simple. You have the start process button here at the top. Just need to select which one of them you would like to proceed with. I know that a lot of you voted for the owner onboarding. You guys wanted to see that, so I'm going to start with that one. This first window that pops up here is going to ask you for some information about this process, and we want to fill in a property. This property, the details for all of these properties are pulled every day from AppFolio. So we don't need to enter all of these manually. They're all set up to auto-populate here, as well as the tenants and all of the owners that we have in AppFolio as well. So you just need to select them. I'll select the tenant as well.
LeadSimple does have an integration right now, both with AppFolio and with Property Builder.
Buildium and Rug Manager as well.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right, and then down here at the bottom, there's certain custom fields that can be customized. So for example, there's a number of roles that you can set up for each process. So let's say there's a main assignee for this process. That will be me for this process, but maybe there's another person that's working on this process, maybe part of the same team or another team. You can add roles to any process, and I've added for this one the role of market director, but this can be customized to anything that you guys want to use. So I'm going to select the market director just to indicate who that person is for the specific process. So let's say that person is Matthew. And then you can set a due date for your process. Of course, I'm going to select 1 week from now because this is owner onboarding. We typically want to get that done within 7 days. Then the details of this, the name of this process is going to be automatically shown here, but you can edit it as you see fit. You can select the assignee, which is the main owner of this process who's going to be working on it. And then the stage, I'll tell you more about the stages a little later. You can add tags to it as you see fit. You can add comments that the entire team can see once the process has been created. So all of this is helpful. And then you have a set of custom fields that you can use. And I'll show you guys how these can be used within the process as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click save. I'm not going to add any of these details here. I'll show you guys later on how those work. And then once the process is created, this is basically the home page of that process. So here on the right side, you have all of the details that we just entered, the property, who's working on it, the tenant, the owner, and so on, all of those details. Because this is an owner onboarding process, this is an inherited tenant. So we're assuming that we are taking over this property with a tenant already in place. And up here, you have all of the possible stages, just the lifeline of the process as you move along. So we start this process from the moment that the intake form is received from the owner, and we have all of the details about this property. Then we'll move on to information being collected, and then to onboarding the inherited tenant. And then the green stage always shows when the process is completed, onboarding is complete, and then we'll start a nurturing campaign in there. If anything goes wrong and we decide not to go forward with this, we also have a cancel stage, which is unfit client. So we decided the client is unfit, we're just gonna move it to that stage. So how do you move from one stage to the other? Just by checking off the to-dos that you have for each day. And then you can also move the process manually just by clicking on one of these stages. If there are any stages that you want to skip, or for whatever reason, maybe this is an exception and you need to move to a different stage. So you can see here on the bottom, we have an activity log. It's already showing what happened so far. I created it, this process, and then I moved it to the first stage, which is intake form received. And then here you'll see all of the tasks that generate automatically for this process. And we have the first task in here. I told you before, there can be several types of tasks. This is just a simple to do. It will have instructions here on the right. The user can click on the instructions and it will tell you exactly what to do, more than just what the title of the task says. So we can set the due date for this checklist. And remember, guys, I already set this to be a week from now, but any fields that show like this, which are the custom fields I showed you in the beginning, you can click on them and edit them. So I can choose another date for another due date for this process. Let's say I don't want the 25th, I'll just 28th, whatever, and I can save it. And this will, the custom field that I update here, anywhere in the process where this is needed or shown, it will have the same value. So it will update everywhere. And there's conditional logic that can be based on these fields. So that's why they're very useful. All right, once I'm done with whatever this task is asking me to do, I can check it off. But before I do that, I want to show you what this little hand here says. So there's two different types of tasks that can be mandatory. One is the whole task, which you can see here. If you do not check off this task, no others will generate. So this basically holds the process right here in this stage until this is completed. And once I check it off, new tasks will appear over here. All right, so now we have a different one, the one to send someone an email. If you click over here on the right on the email button, it's gonna show you the email template that we created for this one. This is like a welcome video from our CEO, Sean. Once the owner's email address is already pre-populated, our from email address is already populated. Everything is ready to go. If you want to add anything to this email, you can. Otherwise, you can just send it over to the client. You can have your default signature attached to this email. Of course, it will show the person who's working on it. I'm going to cancel this, but I'll say that it's completed. And then as you move along, of course, check off all of these tasks. We can move forward into the next stage. There's another email here that we want to send to the owners. I added this little roadmap of where we are in the onboarding process for the owners to see how we move along, just to get a visual of what we're doing for them and where they are in the process. So I've added this to all of the emails that we're sending them during the onboarding process. All right, and as we move along, let's say we also sent them all of the information that they needed. You can put very detailed information like this one here. And once we've checked off all of these, I just wanted to show you guys the other type of mandatory task, which is this one over here. It has a little star. This means that this step will be required even if you move to a different stage. It will still remain active until you check it off. It's not going to stop other tasks from generating, but it will remain active until the end of the process, even if you move to another stage. So let's say I want to move to the next stage in this process. You see all of these ones with the star are still active. So I really like this function. If there's something that's really important, it will remain open there. Even if someone moves it by mistake, or you check something off that you shouldn't have, these sticky tasks, as they're called, will always be active for you there. So I find that this is a very, it's one of the things that I really like about it. All right, so once you've completed, we've completed all of these tasks, we've ended up in the green stage. This means that your process basically is completed. And this is the experience on the user side.
Alexandra, there was a question in the chat that or in the Q&A, I think makes sense to address right now. They were saying that this assumes that people know how to complete that task. Are there instructions? And I think that that's a easy one to show as we're going here.
Yeah, that's what I was showing a little earlier, but let me find that process that we just created again. So if you want to do that, you would just search in the global search function, and it will show under processes here. So going back to it, there are instructions for each of these tasks. I'm going to look at the ones that are completed now. So just by toggling this view, you can look at tasks that have already been completed. Let's choose this one. I'm going to uncheck it, and it's going to show back up in the upcoming list. So with this button here that says instructions, this is where it tells you exactly what to do. You can set this up for your team to give as many details as you'd like for them to know what to do with this task. So for example, this one says to confirm that miscellaneous documents have been received from the owner. And I added a list of everything that you could possibly need from an owner during this stage, so that my team can check all of them if they've been received. And you can add links to them. So let's say if she wants to send a W-9 to the owner, she notices that he or she notices that a W-9 is missing. When she does this check, she can just click on it. It will take you to that form in your drive or wherever you have it saved that you have a link to it. And then they can send it to the owner for them to fill it out. So you can put very detailed instructions in here for each task. That's basically how it's done.
Somebody also is asking, can you embed videos into the instructions?
Yes, you can embed videos into the email templates, into the instructions. You can do all that. You can add images. You can add those custom fields that I was showing you earlier, and I'll show you all of that in a second. Yeah, you can do all that.
I'm glad that Russ asked this question. I want to pause there for just a minute, because there's no right or wrong answer, by the way, to how much instruction to put into your processes, because some people adopt different philosophies about this, right? So like Steve Rosenberg, for example, is really big on this idea that you have, because he comes from a pilot background, so he uses this example a lot. He's like, you just have a very basic checklist that presumes you know how to do what's on the checklist. In addition to that, you have your big giant flight manual that kind of gives you all the instructions that you might need. And different people do that to varying degrees. And so, Alexander, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about sort of our philosophy at HomeVault and kind of, you know, how we decided upon how much instructions to put into our processes versus leaving them separate in the process manual.
Yeah, that's perfectly right. So when I designed these with the mindset of us not being stuck in these processes. So of course you want a lot of details, but for our team members, it won't ever be exhaustive. So you won't ever be able, at least that's what I think, you won't ever be able to think about all of the possible situations that you may come across. So they still need to use their reasoning while they're going through these processes, and just think about if a if something needs to be customized to a process, if it needs special attention, if they need to tweak something, they can add a task that's possible right here. If you want to add an extra task because this process maybe needs it, as opposed to others where it's not. So we really do, we do provide guidelines for them, but that doesn't mean that they don't need to, you know, just use their best judgments as they're going through these.
Right. And to be clear, we do also have a process manual that houses a ton more detail than we actually also have in the actual process software. Zach, I think you were going to add a comment to this too.
I just want to make sure that we covered that you can embed screenshots, videos in the instructions, which you answered as well. I think another one that we can address at the end, but people asking questions about templates and if they have a starting point. I just wanted to address that, yes, we have a solid starting point that we just updated within our library. It's a brand new set of core templates. And I'm sure there are other people in the industry as well that are open to sharing pieces of that as well. And we're starting to see that happen, but there is a library there for you to get started as a good starting point.
Yeah, and as a customer and user who has tried to use a lot of templates over the years, I mean, I'll just share my experience on that to say, while I really appreciate templates, honestly, they're really not that helpful. I mean, they're helpful to the degree that they help you to think about some things that you need to be thinking about, and maybe they give you a good launching pad, but everything you're seeing here is completely custom. And LeadSimple does make it possible, for example, that we could upload all of this to LeadSimple and make it available for other people to download and use. But I just don't know that our processes will be that helpful to other people, because we all in business do things so differently that you really need to take the time to really invest in thinking through your own processes in detail. Hey, before we move on to, just because we are getting a lot of questions about integrations, I wanted to pause and let Zach and Chris just talk about that real quick. A lot of people are asking about how exactly do your integrations work with the 4 PMSs you're currently working with?
Totally. So I'll cover that. We currently integrate with AppFolio, Propertyware, Buildium, and Rent Manager, all of them in a similar way through their scheduled CSV reports. Buildium doesn't allow you to schedule reports, so those are as needed. So a few clicks to trigger those in Buildium, but all the other platforms have scheduled batch reporting for all of your owner, tenant, lease, delinquency, vendor information can be pulled in to LeadSimple. And some people are like, well, why does that matter? Well, why it matters is because every other system that you can build processes in doesn't have the data that you interact with. Property management is property centric, and then you've got relationships with owners and tenants, and LeadSimple allows you to have that all embedded into the software. So one good example would be you could trigger your lease renewals 90 days out in about 2 or 3 clicks. Whereas if you're on another platform and you have to enter all of that data to start every single process, it could take you days. So the data integration we view as critical, and we're continually going to push on being the best that we can in the data integration side of things. Right now, we can pull via those CSV reports. AppFolio does have an API, but all it is a pull API. There's no ability to push into AppFolio currently. So that's a limitation there. Would love to see them to have an open API. Propertyware is also, we're doing pull. They do have an API as well, but not one that isn't free. So we're waiting on them to have a free offering before we do that. But they are thinking about that in Q1 of next year, which would be really exciting. We'll see where that goes. And then Buildium and Rent Manager also. So we're pulling in on a scheduled basis. So basically what that means for you is you don't have to update your data. It happens over time, and you don't have to keep track of doing that within another system, which would be really a pain to pull off. So I've been trying to answer any other questions. If you have any other detailed questions about that, feel free to ask them and I'll get to them in the chat.
Thank you. And I was just showing you guys, while Zach was explaining that to us, I was just showing you where these integrations can be found. So they're right here in LeadSimple, and you can customize this straight from here. Just going back to our process here. I know someone asked about sending the emails. So the emails can be sent either manually, just by clicking on this button like I showed you a little earlier, editing the email template that we already have in here and then sending it off. Or they can be set to be sent automatically. And this is one that is scheduled to be sent after a specific time. So after a number of days, you can set this up. I'll show you in a second. I did want to show you an example of a task where we do need to be very specific and give proper instructions. So for example, this one, select the correct bank account when you put the unit in AppFolio. So on this one, you know, there's not much that you can do. You just need to choose the proper account for each unit. So I just listed them all here for the team to make sure that they choose the right one. So this would be an example where you have to give exact instructions. Other tasks may just be, may not have instructions at all. If it's just something like check if you've received the W-9, there's nothing else to do there. So this all depends on, it really depends, like Matt said, it varies for everyone and how you do business. It can be very different by state. It can be very different depending on who does that task. If it's a remote team member, if it's someone in the office, it will be very different for everyone. But you can customize all this in LeadSimple, so that's great. Let me show you a little bit on the back end, just to show you how those emails are set up. So when you go to settings for each process, this is what it looks like. These are all the possible stages that the process goes through, and you can edit each one of them. So the one I was showing you earlier, where we have an automated email that goes out, these are all in the owner onboarding complete nurturing stage. And this is what they look like on the back end. So I've scheduled an email to be sent 7 days after this process is due, and it's automatic. This is where you make it automatic, and this is where you set up the email template for it. So this email is going to go out. No one needs to do anything about it. It's just going to do that by itself. Then 14 days later, we have another email going out to this owner, and so on. So we have this nurturing campaign where we send out an email every week to our owners, just with bits and pieces of how we do stuff and reminding them what our repair guidelines are, how they get paid, when they get paid, and so on. So this all is done automatically on in the back end, and no one needs to do anything when the process reaches this stage, basically.
Great, and that's just something to highlight here as well. That's why the data integration is so powerful too, because as you could see, Alexandra's embedded the owner's first name, the property address in the subject line, and you can set it and forget it. Owner onboarding is very neglected, and this is a way to make sure it actually happens without adding additional work.
Correct. So what he was referring to is here you have the owner's first name. You can add this as a custom field from a list of custom fields, either that you pulled from AppFolio or that you created here, and it will show the owner's first name. So you can make this more customized for the more customized experience for the owner when they receive the email. You can add a video to it if you'd like, by adding the link here. You can add an image to the email if you'd like. I think this is what someone was asking about earlier. If you can add a video, this is where you would do it from. All right, so this is the back end of it. Another thing that I like very much is that once you're done with all of the to-dos that you have inside a stage, it will move out automatically to the next stage. So it just flows very nicely from one stage to the other. Unless you don't want it to do that, and maybe there's some conditional logic that the team needs to be aware of, and then you can leave it in that stage until you decide what to do with it. I want to show you a little bit of how this conditional logic works. Conditional logic is set from this button over here. So for this task, for example, we have a rule that if the property is occupied or and it has one of these custom fields, either occupied or tenant occupied, it will show this task, otherwise it will not show it. And how do we know? We know if the property is occupied or not because we have a previous to do somewhere here in the process, which is asking the assignee of this process to tell, to fill in that custom field and say if it's occupied or not. Once they've done that, then we can generate this step or not. Because this is a charge that we need to charge this fee to the owner if the unit is occupied, basically. So you want to show this if it is occupied. You don't want it to show if it's not occupied. All the person needs to do is working on the process is fill in that field, and then this will show or not show. Are there any more questions about the owner onboarding?
Yeah, just mentioning about conditional logic and how that builds into the process. As you add data along the way, you just showed how you can have a step show up in certain cases, but not in others. Everyone knows that processes, that's part of the, processes are really complicated because they have a lot of branched logic. And if you don't have a system to allow you to customize that, then you're going to have a ton of steps that apply, but don't actually apply in that case. So that's a great example you just showed. If it's occupied, there's a different fee. If it's not, we don't need to schedule that step.
Right. So these would be the instructions that we then see as we check off our tasks. So in these instructions, for example, I added that they need to fill in if the unit is occupied. So this is the field that they would click on, select yes or no. And then depending on that, if it's yes, this task will show. If it's no, it will hide it. That's kind of how it works. All right. Any more questions about this one, or we can move on to the next preferred process? I think that was move-in, or remind me.
Alexandra, I'm not sure when you want to show this, but you just showed the back end. So that's how somebody would build that out in the conditional logic. If you can show an example of what the user would see through that conditional logic, that would be great as well.
Yeah, so let's pick that exact same example so that we can see it in action. We were in the intake form received stage. And let me reactivate, and you can do this, or you can reactivate a task that you've already checked off. So I want to reactivate this one, because this is the task where it's asking me to fill in that information. So this is what the user would see. It would have an instruction, add missing property information. All right, so I'm clicking on instructions to see what they want from me. And now I have these fields over here, and I see some of them have already been populated. We have this state already filled in, but we don't have the unit occupancy. So I want to click on unit occupancy and choose that it is tenant occupied. I'll save this information and close it out. And now as I reach my other stage, Let's check these off so that it shows me the task that I was looking for, which is for Profit Coach to charge a fee for a tenant occupied unit. Okay, they have new keys. So I messed up with this process a little bit. I don't think it's still going to show that task because we probably went past the point where it should have generated. We didn't fill in the custom field from the very beginning. And I think that's why it's not showing up. But basically what would happen if we had set that from the beginning, it would have showed us this charge appropriate fees. Now I just have to go back to this stage to see it. So it shows us this task right here, charge appropriate fees, charge additional unit occupied fee. And I can see this because I chose that the unit is occupied. If I had selected no, that the unit is not occupied, then this to do here would have been invisible. It would not have shown it. I think that answers the question, Tony, right?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Are there any more questions about this one?
No, I don't think there's any more questions specifically about that process. We have lots of other good questions coming in. Why don't we pause and answer some of these other questions, and then
Sure.
we can circle back around and do another process if we still have time. So let's see. So one person asked, I think this will be a quick answer. They said, oh, where did it go? This is in the chat. They basically were saying, hey, once a team member is fully trained, can you minimize the instructions so they don't have to see them anymore? But I think the instructions are already kind of minimized by default. Like you really have to actually click on them to see the instructions.
Yeah, like I've been doing so far, I'm just checking these off without opening the instructions box. Yeah, they can do that. For now, because we're still working on these processes and always improving them, I think it's good for them to open the instructions box just in case something changed there. Maybe we updated some fields or some instructions, but yeah, you can just check them off.
Right. And then this question I really like a lot because, you know, this is something we're working on now. Basically, Wes was asking, can you show management tools like the dashboards, et cetera? How does a manager monitor the progress, the bottlenecks, et cetera? And so we can show them, Alexander, how we're doing this now. And then Chris and Zach, obviously, we've been having some other conversations about how this can, you know, what's on the roadmap for LeadSimple in this regard. So let's answer both questions.
Great.
Right, so you have a dashboard. You have a dashboard for each of these processes if you want to see a specific process, or you have this general one for all processes where you can filter what you see here. I already created, for example, one for all processes that are overdue. If I want to see that and see who's behind, I can see who the assignee is, what stage the process is in, when it was created, when it's due at. You can customize this view here to include other available rows if you need to. So this is very helpful from a manager's side if they want like just a quick glance at what processes are we behind on, or if you want to check a specific process and see what's wrong with it. It gives you some counts up here as to how many are overdue if you want to see that. You can add filters based on if it's on to see processes that are on track, off track, that are assigned to a specific person. Maybe you want to see just filtered just by a specific custom field, like the type of renewal or the type of management agreement termination, or what any of these custom fields that we've added manually. You can filter by. You can filter by status, on track, off track, when it was created. So all of this you can customize. The other part that Matt was referring to is the reporting side. And I'll let Zach tell us a little bit about that, because that's the, we don't really have that ongoing right now, but it's in the works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one other thing to highlight too, this is within LeadSimple what we have. So you have a dashboard here, which is for all processes. Then you have a dashboard for each process, and you can customize them and add different save filter views based on all those filters that Alexander just showed. But another piece of this as well is that's obviously just the processes that are on track, off track, overdue, all that. But if you want to get more granular than that, then each user, you can see in the left-hand sidebar, the task list. And this is the most granular view where you can look at everyone's tasks that are overdue. So if you're an admin or a manager, then you can jump into anyone's task list. I bet if we jumped into Matthew, he'd have 10,000 overdue tasks. But because we know Matthew, oh, wow. That's
fun.
fantastic.
I have clear instructions from my team to not give me tasks.
Anyway, so you can look at everyone's task list and really keep a eye on them without having to ask them even, which is really valuable. And as everyone's having to work remote now, mostly, then it's been really helpful for teams to be able to have this ability and cover for each other as well. If someone gets sick, you can reassign their tasks to yourself and things like that. So that's what we currently have on the management end of things. And we were going to talk a little bit about roadmap at the end, but Matt's right. We're talking about, what are the major KPIs beyond what we currently have that every property manager is going to be interested in, and kind of honing in on what those would be. We're very, very interested in that. So open to thoughts and work there. We've got it slated for our 2021 roadmap, and yeah, excited to add to that. Particularly, and we'll get into it a little bit at the end, a component potentially of time tracking as well, and the unit economics around the time spent on tasks, which would be a really unique thing that no one's done before. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, and you guys have been really, one thing that we've loved about LeadSimple is just how open they are to feedback, and really, they're catering to the property management industry, and we really appreciate that. And so we have personally have started having good conversations with them about KPIs that we would like to see. I told Alexander, dream big, put Zach to work. So we're looking forward to seeing what comes up with there. Another question we have, and this will also touch on a roadmap here, but somebody was asking basically about kind of communication with owners and residents and whatever, and they were asking, are we managing all of our communication through LeadSimple? And the answer is no, not really. We have all of this communication that happens directly as it's connected to our processes. We currently use Help Scout, and I'm a huge fan of using ticketing systems to communicate with your clients and anybody, frankly. I won't get sidetracked on why, but I am a huge fan of it. And so having said that, I'm really excited that LeadSimple has it on their roadmap to include that level and type of communication within LeadSimple. And so when that happens, all of you guys are gonna have to get in line behind me, because I've already told them that I want to be first in line for us to be able to roll our Help Scout system directly into LeadSimple, and then we won't need Help Scout anymore. Chris and Zach, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'll defer to Chris on this one.
Yeah, so this is a feature that is at the top of our roadmap right now, actively being developed. It's probably going to be released in Q1, at least on a beta basis. So if you guys are using LeadSimple and you want to help us beta test that, then please let us know. We're calling it the inbox, and it's just another view of the communications, the calls that we're tracking, the emails, and the text messages. But it's centralizing it in a format where it's really easy to look at which conversations are open, who they're assigned to, and when they're closed. So it's going to allow you to roll up all of the communications that are happening into one place where it's really easy to knock those things out. So very similar to a tool like Help Scout or other similar communication tools. We've already got the backend capability to track and send those communications. This is going to be a much more streamlined user interface for managing those communications in one place. Related to that will eventually be shared inboxes as well. So we have beta support for this currently. So if you have like a leasing department and things like that, then you can share access to that email account and have multiple people managing the emails in that inbox.
Okay, cool. We do have a few more questions coming in. For the sake of time, let's keep going through the questions for now, and then again, if we have time, we'll go through the Q&A. So let me just run through some of these. Mark at one point asked, "Can Alexander show the note on the right as an example?" I think we maybe already covered that, but is there? Oh, maybe it's that button.
Maybe he's referring to the notes section here. So on any process, you can add notes that the entire team can see, and they're just simple notes where you add text. In the future, and I really appreciate Chris and Zach being open to this, there's going to be a tag function so that you can tag a team member. I find that that's really, really helpful, so I'm looking forward to it. Basically, tagging someone will get their attention through an email or whatever notification that they receive. So that's going to be helpful.
And then somebody asked a question for Alexander. I noticed that some stages pull up about 10 tasks all in one go. How do you deal with an overwhelming amount of tasks if you have over 10 processes assigned to you?
That's a very good question. And we do already have team members who have tens of tasks that are assigned to them every day. You would see them all here under tasks. And I don't have so many of them, but they would be grouped by when they are due. So I only have 2 that are due today. But if you had overdue ones, that would be a section down here to show you the overdue ones. So they're grouped by that, basically by priority. But you can also go into each process and check on the tasks that are due for a specific process. From a management point, that's more useful because you can see all of the ones that are active. Now, to answer your question, ideally each team member would come in here every day in tasks in the morning or whenever, and just go through all of the tasks that are assigned to them for that day. Some of them really do not take that long. Some of them may take a little longer. This is where the reporting side is going to come in real helpful to see how much time is spent on each of them so that you can manage this whole process a little better, or decide on the workload that's assigned to each team member.
Yeah, and we are going through some of our processes now also to just be really thoughtful about when a task does get created, how do you assign the due date to it to make sure that it's manageable? So,
yeah, because that's the key is LeadSimple tells you what you need to do today and anything that's overdue. But if you set up your process to have your due dates lined out, in a more reasonable format, then you won't run into the issue of having a ton of them becoming overdue right away when they actually can't do them at that point.
Yeah, and like I said, that's one thing that we have kind of realized, that we might have some of our processes a little bit incorrect in that regard, and we're trying to go back through and figure out which ones we need to dial back some of the due dates to help with that problem. So.
And you can change the due dates as you're working on them. So let's say this was assigned to me and it's due today, but I know it's not going to be done today. For whatever reason, I can just go in and change the date on the specific task, and it's not going to show as overdue anymore. Or if for whatever reason you need to change the due date of the entire process, you can change it from up here. Of course, this is for some processes, this is more important than for others. For example, if you're working on a security deposit disposition process, you don't want to change the due date on that one because you want to stick to whatever number of days it is that you legally have to get that done within. But for other processes like the owner onboarding that we're doing now, this can be more of a fluid date. So you can go here and adjust that.
Okay, cool. A couple of people asked questions.
Matt, real quick.
Yeah.
I just want to point out, so we have people in the organization that Alexandra had said, ideally it would be good for people to come in every day and check and see what tasks they have. And that's true for people who have tasks every day, but you will have people in your organization that randomly get assigned a task, say it's to post an eviction notice or something like that. the system is set up to be able to send emails out on a daily basis, so that when you get a task assigned, it'll let you know. So if you have people that are, not real tech heavy and aren't in it every day, there's still a way to communicate with them effectively and get them involved in the process without them having to come in and check every day.
Correct.
Right.
And even if that's not set on a global level, you can set it for each task. So if you know that this task is not due for another couple of weeks, you don't need to come here every day and check it. Just set a reminder for yourself 1 hour before, or 24 hours, or whatever you need to. Click save, and then it will send you an email at that time. So this is like on a case-by-case basis, but you can also set that globally from where I was showing you earlier to send that notification.
Well, you just mentioned earlier about, as we're managing tasks, how you can change the due date. And Mark asked a great question that I actually don't know the answer to. And he said, can we have classes of users so that only certain people can change due dates?
Not for that specific, not for due dates. We can't do that for due dates. We do have two types of users. Some are admins and some are just regular users. The admins can see more on the dashboard side of things. They can see tasks assigned to other users. They can they have more reporting tools, but everyone can adjust due dates basically.
Right. Chris and Zach, make a note. That's a feature request. We're going to be able to restrict their ability to change due dates. Thank you, Mark.
Yep, got it.
Okay, cool. And then a couple of people were asking about work orders. So somebody said, interested in seeing how you run work orders through LeadSimple. And then somebody else asked a similar question. Are you using this for all work orders as well as a total solution? So could you talk a little bit more about that, Alexandra?
We're not currently using it for work orders. We found that it duplicates the work. Basically, we run that through AppFolio right now, and they have a good platform for managing work orders straight from AppFolio. That's why we haven't set up a process for it here in LeadSimple. If you guys think it's useful, yeah, I would love to see a process for work orders as well. I just think it doubles the work if you have to put it in here for each and every work order that you're handling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll just add on to that we do have clients that are doing this and building integrations, particularly to automatically create those via Zapier, and some integrations there. It's a use case we're interested in continuing to support, and yeah, getting some big clients that are seriously implementing it pretty well. So we'll see how that all rolls out over time. We definitely want to be open to improvements and suggestions to limit any double work that's needed, because a lot of people have found limitations in the flexibility of AppFolio's offering, and then Propertyware is difficult offerings in a way too. So, yep.
Yeah. So on that note, since you mentioned automations, that's one of our other questions. And I mentioned at the beginning that for us, we've taken the route right now to kind of go slow on the automations while we wait for LeadSimple to build out all the automations they want to have before we've used Zaps in the past, and we want to wait before we include Zaps again, just because, again, like I mentioned, it can become expensive if you lose control of your Zaps, and so we wanted to kind of keep reins on that. But so on that note, somebody asked, how are processes triggered? Are they manual? Are they automated? What Zaps do you have set up? So Alexandra, maybe you could show us a little bit of what automations we are currently using. And then Zach and Chris, maybe you can chime in with more use cases of what you're seeing other users use.
Really?
Right. So right now we're starting these processes manually. What Zach and Chris are working on for us is to start some of them automatically. So for example, the owner onboarding process that we're looking at can be triggered automatically from the intake form being filled in by the owner on our website. And then it will start from there with the information already taken from that form. We can do this with Zaps. We just, like Matt said, we just haven't done it yet because that's a lot of Zaps. That intake form is consistent, maybe tens of questions inside there. So we do prefer it to be integrated natively. So we're waiting on that, and we're happy that's getting done. In the same manner, we can have move out process, for example, start automatically from notice to vacate form being filled in on our website by the tenant. So these are kind of the automations that we're working on setting up. Zach, what other automations are you thinking of?
Yeah, there's a few others. So lease renewals obviously is a big one. Right now, all of our clients are doing it on the first of the month. So just every first of the month, you can go into LeadSimple. You can filter all of your tenants because we pulled them in, select them in bulk. For, usually people are starting lease renewals 90 days out. That's across the board. Pretty much everyone is doing that. There's anomalies, but you can set it up any way you want within LeadSimple. Basically, in 4 or 5 clicks, you can trigger all of the lease renewal processes for the 90 days. So if you're starting in January, then you'd be triggering for April and staying ahead of the curve. So that's like a monthly task you just do on the first of the month. We are thinking about just doing it automatically in the future based on the dates that we're pulling in. So that's something we're watching and seeing what people would want there. And then delinquencies as well on the second or so of the month, you can do another bulk trigger of those. And those are monthly tasks I'm encouraging people to just put on their calendar for the person that would do them. And it's a few clicks to filter everyone who still has a delinquent rent, shove them into a process. And the coolest thing about the delinquency process, the way we have it is you can set up conditional logic to automatically bump people out after they've paid. So we are syncing on a 24-hour basis. So as long as you don't have more frequent notifications than 24 hours, you'll be in the clear and you'll be able to continue to notify them automatically of delinquencies and that they collections basically. And if they pay their rent, we'll update that and bump them out of the process and say full rent paid and stop bugging them. Otherwise, you can have it automatically move to other parts of the process as well. So we're totally open to ideas as that's come across the board on different ways to do that. We want to be really careful to help make sure users also don't shoot themselves in the foot with automation. That's something Matt talked about a little bit. There are steps to adopting processes, and I know we could cover this maybe at the end, but a lot of people chase after the coolest, most awesome feeling automations at the expense of even just getting a simple checklist in place. And they spend a ton of time doing that, and they never even get the value of a simple checklist without email templates, without all of those things that are really valuable and native. They lose that by going after really cool automations instead of taking the incremental approach of defining your processes on paper, working through worksheets. We have some resources on that. I know everyone here would be happy to go out and geek out on processes, and then you move it into a system, and then you refine and improve over time, and then you find those pinpoint automations that will actually save you time. If you spend a bunch of time, you don't know what is taking the most time, and if you try to guess, you'll end up missing a significant portion of that. And especially if you've not done integrations before and automations, you're going to spend a lot of time learning that when you could just focus.
That's very true.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, we're process geeks, but we're not techie software geeks. And so like I said in the beginning, I mean, we're only 60% of where we want to be right now. We're not the most advanced in terms of all the different, bells and whistles you could possibly want to have. But yeah, start somewhere and keep it simple, keep it basic to get started. Don't we get, big eyes when we see these really fancy things other people have built out. Don't be intimidated by that. Jump in with some basic stuff to get started.
Yeah, we started this one bare bones, and then we just keep adding stuff to it. I actually underestimated the time that I now spend just adding meat to these processes every day, just based on feedback from the team members on things that it just pops in your head as you're working on one process that you could do this for another one that you already have set up. So just improve it over time. It starts with a basic checklist, and then over time you add stuff to it, and it becomes this great tool.
All right, we are at 60 minutes into this demo. So we have, what I'm gonna do here, I have a couple of little quick hit things, a couple of polls we're gonna put up, and then Zach and Chris, you guys, you know, if you're still available, we're gonna hang in there for anybody that can still hang in there with us. We'll go a little bit over, but a couple of quick hit things here. Number one of my favorite questions we just got asked is Mark and Rich said, Matthew's helping us right now find a process director. Does awesome Alexandra have a sister? Asking for a friend, LOL. So first of all, no, there's only one Alexandra, and you can't have her. But yes, you're right, Mark and Rich, we are helping you hire for that position. We do help folks hire for RTMs. Many of our RTM clients are on here. So this is a position we're starting to experiment with and trying to find other process directors to hire for other companies, because Alexandra is just invaluable to us. And I know what a difference that can make for other folks. So, so if you're interested in that, feel free to chat with us. We do have 2 polls we're going to put up here. Do we have a set order in which to do that, Tony? So the first poll I'll put up just to answer this question. So somebody asked a question, will you guys be sharing templates of your processes? And, you know, I mentioned at the very beginning or at some point that, you know, that's not our intention, just because, again, I'm not sure how beneficial our process will be to somebody else. But since somebody asked, I asked Tony to go ahead and create this poll and just pop it up here for us. And, you know, if that's something you guys are interested in, you know, let us know. I mean, maybe that's something we could consider, because LeadSimple does make that possible, thankfully. So yeah, chime in and answer that poll.
It's right here. If you want to add a new process type, you can find some templates here to start with. So this is where you find them.
Yes, thank you. All right. I think that was enough time, Tony. We can close that poll out.
We still got people saying, answering the poll. So I'd leave it open just a 10 more seconds or so. Just because the ones that say yes, you know, we can reach out to them or they can reach out to us or whatever, but at least we'll know on the poll, you know, who's interested.
All right, well, while we're doing that, I'll answer one more question. Hunter asked this question. Are you using LeadSimple for storing all of your processes or another platform? Great question. I mentioned earlier, you know, we do put a lot into LeadSimple, but we also separately from that have a process manual. Right now, our process manual is just a Google Doc, and it's what, like 90 pages or something at this point, Alexandra?
Over 100 now.
It's over 100 pages. It's just a Google Doc right now, but we're actually in the process of researching various LMS systems. We're looking at Trainual, Talent LMS, Confluence, and we're also just looking at some WordPress plugins. So we're looking to get that out of a Google Doc and put this into a really proper LMS system that we can use to really have some robust training for our team. But that's another whole separate EOS rock we're working on. But good question there, Hunter.
I can show you guys a little bit more on the back end until we have the results of the poll. So I was telling you.
Hey, let's show the results of this poll. Then we have one more poll. So what does this one look like, Tony? Okay. Oh gosh. All right. Well, almost everybody that answered said yes. So good to know. We'll put some thought into that and see how we can help folks out. All right, put up the second poll, Tony, and then while people are answering that, Alexander can show a few more things here. So the second poll here is just, you know, it's been a while since we've done a demo webinar. You know, we love doing these. We're so grateful all you guys came. So here are some ideas of things that, you know, maybe we would talk about on a future webinar. So chime in, let us know what you're interested in learning more about on this list. And then while people are answering that, Alexander, show us a little bit more stuff here.
By the way, you can select multiple on this one. So
thank you.
Select all that you're interested in.
Yeah.
I was showing you guys a little earlier that you can have multiple people working on a process. So you're going to have the owner of the process basically is this assignee, but you can also have other roles that you set yourself, and you can name them whatever you'd like. Let's say I want, I don't know, renewal specialist to work on this project. So I'll just name them renewal specialist right here. Once that's set up, you can click on this role and just select the person who's going to be fulfilling this role for the processes I was showing you earlier. So all this is customizable. You can add as many assignee roles as you'd like for a process. I think as many as you'd like. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys.
Yeah, so that was one of the questions that we had was, do you assign the tasks to a role or to an individual person? And we have the ability to do both.
Correct.
Yeah, I prefer to do a role, and then when you start the process, you would choose who that person is fulfilling that role, because it can be a different team member. If you have something like a market director, it will be a different person for each market in our case. So yeah, you can do it either way. You can also set here the default email that your emails are going from. So for the entire owner onboarding process, I want my emails to be sent from support@homevault.com. That way, when the client responds, for any emails that we send to them, when the client responds, the responses are going to go to this email address. So you can control that from here. And I also wanted to show you guys the custom fields that we were talking about earlier. Those can be set up here from custom fields. And these are all of the ones that we are currently using. So I know it looks like a lot. Like I said, just step by step, I added these one by one as we were going through these processes and found out that they would be needed. A lot of them are just yes or no questions that will help me later on put in some conditional logic to show or not show to-dos based on them. And you can add as many of them as you'd like, assign them to whichever processes you'd like. They cross processes. So if you have a custom field that's set to show in the unit marketing process and in the owner onboarding process, once you've set it in the in one of them, you've set it in owner onboarding, then you will also see it in the other one. So that's useful as well. I really like that feature. You set it once and you're done for that property. It will show in other places as well. Do you have the results, Tony?
Yeah, what's the next poll results here, Tony?
KPIs, of course.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, I love KPIs, and for anybody that's planning on going or attending NARPM Broker Owner, I'm actually going to be doing a general session on KPIs at Broker Owner, and I'm really excited about it. So I'll probably be doing a few webinars in the meantime just to bone up my speech a little bit before I get to Broker Owner. So yeah, be on the lookout for that one, and thanks for filling out this poll. All right, let me wrap
Matt,
up with
just real quick on this.
Yeah.
I want to point out KPIs was a huge winner in this. At almost 3/4 of the respondents selecting that, but we had several at or around 50% of the respondents asking for those things. So
yeah. So let's go ahead and recognize that 50% and 47% wanted to see sales process and marketing funnel. That's exciting.
Yes.
There you go, Jay. That's your role, for sure.
All right. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. We wrap up with a few other comments here. So number one, one thing that LeadSimple does, they're very generous about giving every one of their clients a referral link. Everybody has one. We have one too. So if you're not a LeadSimple client yet, obviously we're huge raving fans of LeadSimple. I have been for years. I've used them for many years now. Highly recommend them. I did put our referral link in the chat. So if you're planning on signing up with them, use that link. Full disclosure, they knock a few bucks off our bill. So I'll use that few bucks to buy you a beer at the next conference if you come and grab me. So you can check out that link there. I did want to also, I want to close with two more things. I want to give Alexandra a minute to talk about why we chose LeadSimple, because we actually have experience having used Podio and Process Street and doing some internal process stuff within Propertyware. And so, we had a lot of things to consider. So Alexandra, what was that process like for us, no pun intended, on picking LeadSimple?
Yeah, we did. We did try with Process Street. I did try with Podio as well. That one is very, very customizable. But really, the one thing that tipped the scales was how open LeadSimple, Chris and Zach, and everyone at LeadSimple is to customizing this for us, helping us set it up. They're just open to our feedback, to our ideas, and how to improve this. They really want to present a software that's good for you, that helps your business. So this is what I really appreciate about it. We did have a hard time getting any kind of customization or even basic answers with the other softwares that we've tried. So yeah, that's how they won me over.
Yeah. Good. And I did want Chris and Zach to take a minute to tell us about their roadmap. This is a product that is fully functional, but it's also in development. And so I wonder if you guys could share with us a little bit about what to expect next year.
Definitely. Yeah. So building on what Alexandra just said, I wanted to emphasize that we get a lot of our roadmap from feedback, direct feedback from customers within the property management space. So you guys are a big part of making this roadmap happen and really appreciate that. We try to keep some spare capacity at all times to respond quickly to opportunities and things and needs that come up. But in terms of the big items on the roadmap, we've touched on a couple of them. The inbox is going to be coming out early next year. So that's a big focus. Then we're also going to be adding a bunch more automation options within each workflow. So there will be a lot more there. One example that we didn't touch on here is automating the stage changes based on either interaction from owners and tenants or based on conditional logic. So offering a lot more automation around the logical piece, decision trees, and things like that. And then Zach touched on the reporting piece. That's going to be a big focus next year. He just hinted at it, but we're looking really hard at time tracking and trying to find out if there's a way for us to add a form of time tracking that wouldn't create a lot of overhead for your team, so you guys aren't having to work really hard to track where the time is going. But if we could show you where the time is going in each process, tie it to tasks, tie it to people, give you some reporting on it on a property and a unit level, then we think that we could create a lot of value by helping you see where the bottlenecks really are, where the team is getting constrained, and provide a lot of insight into where you can make improvements. So those are the big things that we're looking at right now for next year.
Yeah, I was super excited about the reporting stuff. We've had some good conversations about that. Okay, cool. Any other comments, questions, slide remarks, anything we missed here, guys? We had one, we'll answer this one last question. Alexander, you can answer this one. Do you use flowcharts to draw out your processes and the ways conditional logic will route the processes, any particular software you use? What is your process like, Alexander, as you're developing a process for us?
I'm not using any flowcharts. I think it really depends on how you prefer to see things. I just started from our process handbook, which was already built, and just started with the basic structure from there. Zach and Chris helped me put that into LeadSimple as bare bones, and then we worked on that. So I didn't really use any flowcharts, but I know that some people prefer to do that. So yeah, that might be useful.
Yeah, personal preference thing in terms of how you think. So, okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Well, we only actually got through one process, but it was far and away the one that was most voted on. So I hope that was really helpful for folks. And, Tony and Jay and I are really open. If anybody of you have any questions about anything that we talked about here or more requests to see anything we didn't cover, we're easy to find. You can check us out at HomeVault Academy Facebook group. That's probably the easiest way to find us. We're all also on Facebook, or many of you have our email addresses already. So reach out anytime with any questions you have, and make sure to use LeadSimple. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.